Hello, everyone. I thought I would talk about punctuation in dialogue because when I write dialogue, I write it the way I hear speech, not necessarily the way I read. And my dialogue tends to have that kind of rhythm. So I'm more concerned about what sounds good when it comes to dialogue, and I'm less concerned about what looks good on the page per se because of just how I write. For example, punctuation is very important when it comes to creating a type of rhythm. For example, I'll give you an example from my book, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy, when a character says, "I'm afraid you give me too much credit. If my sun does gleam, it's only because your soul resides within it, making bright what was once dark. You compel even the moon to turn away from shadow and glorify only light." Now, what's important there is the fact that there is a pause between between shadow and glorify only light. So it's not you compel even the moon to turn away from shadow and glorify only light. It's you compel even the moon to turn away from shadow and glorify only light. See, there's a comma, a pause there, which places an emphasis on glorify, and it's that kind of thing that creates rhythm in my work. It creates a kind of musicality, and so there are certain kinds of punctuation that. In some cases, it may even look awkward on the page, but when one hears it, one understands why it's being used. And so I think that's very important when it comes to establishing musicality and rhythm. So I hear the way someone speaks and I punctuate accordingly because in order to create a musicality in the voice. But when I write, I'm much more concerned about how it sounds and how it's going to read, because when you're dealing with some people might think that's a liability because people are going to be reading it, but when you're thinking about real flesh and blood characters, the voices and the rhythm and the musicality is very important to me, which is why I tend to write it that way. Just as a lot of composers will write music according to how it's going to sound, not necessarily how it looks on a music sheet, for example.